Tori, and welcome to the Tangled Tiny. This is a 24-foot tiny house that I built myself, and I'd like to show you around. So first off, on the foundation, I went with an Iron Eagle trailer out of Portland, Oregon, and they were great to work with. They let me make a couple modifications. One of the best things about this trailer is that you can bolt the tiny house directly to the frame, and then underneath, all of my plumbing is insulated. On the other side, I have a nice dropout that my plumbing comes out of. One of my favorite features that Iron Eagle let me do was create this bump out over the tongue. And so on the inside, I'll show you later, this is where I got to tuck my sink. And so it makes the bathroom just feel a little bit bigger inside. And then everything comes out over here. This is my nice new little insulated shed. So this is all insulated. My sewer comes out underneath. And I have a heated hose, and then over on this side as well, everything comes out on this side so it can be nice and hidden from the front of the trailer. So my electrical plug-in, my propane for my hot water heater, and my stove are over here. So this is kind of the ugly side, but it's everything that keeps it going. I live in Sequim, Washington. It's a really beautiful area. Part of living tiny means I can go to the national park, to the coast, go kayaking, and have more time to go do all of those things that I enjoy because I'm spending less time on upkeep of a house, also financially and just time-wise. And it allows me to work, so I get to live somewhere that's beautiful. I also get to work out on those beaches. I'm a shellfish biologist, and so it's a really nice combination. And I was lucky enough to find a really great place to keep my tiny house from someone local I know. So there's a house right next to me, but I get access to this beautiful yard. I can barbecue, have a great hammock spot, and then still feel really private and like I have my own space. And I'd love to show you the inside. So I started this and was inspired by a couch. I saw Liberation Tiny Homes had one of their farmhouse models with this couch, and since seeing it, I can't unsee it because it's in a ton of tiny homes. And one of the best things about it is this lifts up and it offers a ton of storage for all those things you don't want people to see, like your vacuum, so we'll just leave that closed. And this bottom pops out and folds up, and this turns into a bed. So if I do have guests, even though it's a tiny house, they have a place to stay, and all of the bedding is self-contained. One of my favorite things that I chose to do in the tiny house is these beams, and they're salvaged out of Salvage Works in Portland, Oregon. Then that inspired a lot of the other design features of the tiny house. I went with white shiplap to make it look bigger, including all the way up to the vaulted ceiling, and then chose to do dark window trim to kind of make everything pop and feed back to the beams. I had a slight obsession with Fixer Upper and Joanna Gaines, so the tiny house steals a lot of those design elements. And then I love plants, so everywhere that I can, I have plants, and there will probably be more. This is my favorite $15 Costco purchase for this fiddle leaf fig. Another thing that I got from IKEA when I got this couch was this butcher block countertop. And that was a really great purchase because I could cut it and then use this for a tabletop. And later I'll show you where I use the rest to create more counter space over my washer and dryer. Having things that are functional, that look great, and store things is also a plus in the tiny house. So I have all my art supplies here, and then the rest are stored in these cool little salvaged cubbies that I have underneath the stairs. So these are really great. This is like every house's junk drawer, so all the things that you don't want people to see. And then I chose stairs in the tiny house because I stayed in a tiny house before moving in that had a ladder, and drank enough in the night that I had to get down the ladder at 3 a.m. and it wasn't my favorite experience. And stairs also allowed me an opportunity to store all of my stuff. So I've left this little cubby down here that is my shoe cubby, and then the rest of this allows me to keep my clothes stored. So my reason for wanting to go tiny was that I couldn't really afford to buy a house on my own at the time, and living in rentals was, one, expensive, and you can't do anything fun to them. You can't paint rentals, you can't like put a fence in, like make a backyard, do some fun stuff like that. So a tiny house allowed me to have full creative direction, and I think it was a bit of a challenge. Like, it was a scary task to take on, and in doing that I proved that I could accomplish something that I had no experience in. All right, and now we have the kitchen on this side of the tiny house, and one of my favorite mistakes is this sink. So it's actually a farmhouse sink that I just framed up underneath and wasn't able to use with the cabinets I purchased. But now I really love the clean look of the cabinet fronts, and it's just one of the things building the tiny house that I had to keep adapting from different little mistakes or tweaks, it being my first time building anything. I don't have an oven, but I will eventually have room for a toaster oven down under here, and there is an electrical outlet to be able to plug it in. I can do most things on the cooktop, and this is one of 2 appliances that are run by propane in the tiny house and not electric. On a whim, I decided to make a custom backsplash, and what I did is these pre-done sheets I just cut and made it like a honeycomb style. I have a bit of a hexagon theme going in the tiny house. These cabinet poles are a hexagon, and I just really like the gold. It all came custom, and it works great to have that heat protection against the wall. So this is the walnut countertop that I was talking about. I took the other half and velcroed it onto the washer and dryer here because it does shake a little bit and I didn't want it to move. And so this is my coffee nook. Got my grounds from Hurricane Coffee locally in town. So this is a combo washer and dryer, so it does it all at once. It takes about 3 hours, so I usually like to start it and then leave. I also have some extra counter space over here in case I, want to do 2 different things in the kitchen, and it actually hides all of my clothes. So this side is kind of the whole laundry side, goes from washer and dryer to cabinet to the closet stairs. So my tiny house build journey took longer than I expected, which almost everyone says reading online. So start to finish, it was over about 3 years, but total construction time was about 1.5 years. I paid for all of it as I went, and it totaled out at about $30,000, I think. Got some Home Depot receipts I found, but we'll add those in later. And some of the most challenging parts of the build were not getting discouraged. So trying something, failing, and then being willing to try again and maybe again and again until you get that perfect cut to fit right. Insulation was a tough one too. It was really itchy, but then it's really rewarding when you get it done, that sense of accomplishment. And then back here is the bathroom. This is the bump out I mentioned outside when we were walking around, and this allows just to have more space in the bathroom. If I had to have a sink jutting out, it'd feel a lot smaller. And then what we have here is a nice hidden curtain hiding the hot water heater. Another decision I made was not to have any holding tanks with the tiny house, so I don't have gray water or a sewer holding tank. And I'm lucky enough to have a tiny house spot that I do have sewer hookup, But if that wasn't an option to have a flush toilet, my plan was to go with a composting toilet and then run the rest of the tiny house on a gray water system and figure out some sort of outflow that worked wherever I was able to put the tiny house. I went with a big shower because I couldn't go with a bathtub, so I wanted to be able to wash my hair and not have my elbows hit the wall. And my second favorite mistake of the tiny house was buying the wrong size shower pan and not realizing it. And that allowed me to end up doing a custom quartz shower pan. Shout out to Olympic Peninsula Stone for helping me with so many design features in the tiny house. And that has the same slab as the kitchen counter, so it really ties everything together. And I like the way that it looks. I went with subway tile in the shower with a dark grout and love the classic look, and that it also matches the shower pan. Another great thing about the bathroom is this bold tile that I chose. I went with that because of having so much white space out in the tiny house. It is a fun feature to add. So the stairs, I went with something not necessarily traditional with these quartz tops. And everybody's been worried that I will slip in my socks, but it's surprisingly not as slick as you would think going up the steps. And it creates just a really clean, seamless look with the white. So with the Loft, I try to give myself as much headroom as possible, so the tiny house is maxed out at that 13.6, which is the legal driving height that you don't need a permit for. And I have an egress window here, so the skylight actually opens in case I needed to, for any reason, jump off of my house, which I hope doesn't happen. And this metal ceiling was a really great find. Picked it up, and I love that it ties the rustic beams together and separates the space a little bit with these dormers. So even though it's a tiny house, it feels like a different room. And finding a mattress that worked was pretty difficult. I thought about going with like a really thin, like 5-inch mattress so that I'd have even more head height, but I'm not that tall and I'd rather have a really comfortable mattress and sleep well. I appreciate having the bird's eye view when I wake up and go kind of sit out on the edge and take it all in the morning. I would say to anyone that's like thinking about going tiny or any project, especially women, that it's intimidating, and sometimes it's really intimidating, you know, going to the hardware store and maybe asking for what you want or having people question you. But I would suggest to try it, even if it's like something small to build or go to a workshop, because it's really empowering. In the beginning, I was like terrified of a framing nailer. I used it and was, you know, a healthy amount of fear. And now I'll see things and I'm like, you know what, I think I could build that. I should try that. And it's a really nice feeling of not needing to find somebody to do things for you. Thanks for coming by and checking out the tiny house. I hope you enjoyed what you see, and if you want to see more, find me on Instagram under Tangled Tiny.
Thank you for watching our video and for stopping by Tiny House Expedition. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And for more tiny home tours and stories, click the videos below.
And join us on Patreon for bonus content,
including face-to-face conversations with us. We hope to see you there.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.